Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live. And we're going to continue kicking this can down the road, so to speak, or pulling the cotton ball apart, because we've been talking about last night at Martini time, and I think yesterday, we've been talking about this idea of first and third person. You know, in grammar, first person is I am, I, and third person is it. Anything you talk about is an it, is third person. He, she, or it. Nouns are all it. But I is not an it. You can make your I an it and say I'm an it, feel like an it, get judged as an it, feel like an object, feel constrained, break out of the it. But the first person is I, and the first person is the center, you see. And the first person is active. I am the center of the world as first person. As third person, I am in the world as an it. We're all an it. We're all an object. We're all nouns. But the I is missing. The first person is missing, because you can't turn around and see yourself as the first person. You can't turn around. The I can't see itself. The I that is looking at you can see you, but I can't see the I. The mirror can't see the mirror, you see. So this first person is missing. So let's explore what happens when the first person is missing and why something has changed. Yesterday we were talking about, well, I'll take this down. The first person, the third person, it works in a logical world. It's all the its are arranged logically. And you can understand an it analytically. You can tear it apart, cut it up into pieces, put the pieces back together. But the I is always outside of that. The I is the one without a second. The I is never cut up. The I is what's doing the cutting. So the I is always separate, yet the I is where we live. So let's continue this. And we're looking at the shift in the center. Now, let's go back a few hundred years to the Middle Ages. And the Middle Ages was the last time that European civilization was under one big tent. The Holy Roman Empire was a extension of the Holy Roman Empire. Just changed the Roman Empire for the Pope. But it put everything under one umbrella. And the Middle Ages was very concerned, its primary concern was getting to heaven and not going to hell. And the cathedral, these great gothic cathedrals that every city had to have, was the entranceway into the spiritual or the heavenly dimension. And there was an inside world in the cathedral and then the outside world of the feudal ages. So this all broke apart with the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment brought a shift in the center. The Enlightenment brought the it. In other words, in the age of reason, truth became empirically verified and grounded in it. So everything is an object, and you could verify truth by experimenting with objects. But the first person, the scientist, you see, was removed from the experiment. In the Middle Ages, alchemy was a mixture of the subject and the object. So it was kind of like magic. So the scientist and his study were subject and object, were mixed together. There was no separation of subject from object, from first person from third person. But the Enlightenment separated first person from third person and made the whole world it. Then you could work on it and make stuff and fix it. But the first person was removed. the scientist was not in the experiment. And so then the Protestant Reformation and the scientific Reformation all worked together. So the religion was broken up, and the Bible became portable. So the Bible became your God center, and you could enter into God and connect with God through the Bible. So the Bible became a mediator, and Christ became the Godhead, or the God-man, the mediator. You had to go through Christ and the Bible in order to get to God and the second dimension, you see. So these were two separate worlds, but then they all kind of got mixed up together, and everything became an it. So God became an it, Jesus became an it, the church is an it, the Bible's an it, everything's an it. The center is lost. The first person is lost altogether. And this is changing. We'll see how. So let's look at a difference here between the two realms, that the two realities that moved along since the Enlightenment was the secular world and the religious world. In the beginning, they were separate, but they began to merge. But anyway, a good way to look at the difference was in the 50s. You had everybody going to a land church. I mean, your church is located on the land in space and time. You can go to the church. It's a physical place. And in the church, you would have a physical altar. So everything was located physically. But if you weren't religious and you went to, what was the church if you weren't religious? Well, or even if you were religious, there was another secular church. And that was the department store. If you remember, people would dress up to go shopping at the big department stores. Women wear their gloves and their hats, and they would go to the department stores to be a consumer. To be a consumer of goods, you see. And this was a religious act, in the sense that a secular religion of consumerism. So you had two consumers here. So if you went to church, you went as a consumer of religious doctrine and information. And then during the week, everything was split. On Sunday, you went to church and consumed religion at a local church. And during the week, you went to a department store and consumed goods in your local department store. But what connected them together was that you were consumers. There was no first person there. Everyone's an it. And so in the church, you see, you have the center, which could be the altar or the Bible or the minister or Jesus or God or whatever, and everybody is around the center, like Boy Scouts around a campfire. But the center, the people around the fire, around the center, are passive. They're not interacting they are not the center. The center is external to them. So everybody here in this paradigm, you see, is on the rim of the wheel, and the hub is some external center. It could be Jesus, God, the Bible, the president, your whatever your leader is. Something is going to be the center, and you're going to organize and integrate yourself and find a place in reality by getting around that center. But you're not the center, you see. You're on the rim of the center. There's no first person here. Everybody's a third person, and the first person has been allocated to the center. So Jesus is the first person, or God is the first person. You're not the first person. So your first person has been surgically removed and put in the center. And then you get around it, you see, and get warm and get organized in center. Well, there's nothing wrong with this. I'm just trying to explain it. But the point is, this all fell apart after the 50s, and it's been falling apart since then. The center is shifting. Now, the best example of how the center is shifted is to look at the internet. Now, there was a fellow here yesterday, a deacon in a church, working on a video, and he said, in our little church, everybody's old and the church is dying. The young people don't come. Why don't the young people go back to a brick and mortar church where the center is located in space and time? And the idea came up that, well, the reason they're not going is because they're going to a new church. It's the Holy Roaming Internet Church. Now, what's different about this church? And remember, we're looking more at church like a tent in which one finds meaning and relevance, you see. So in the Holy Roaming Internet Church, something has changed. The center, there is no physical center of the internet. There is no one thing or one God or one city or one thing or one computer. Who's the center of the internet? You're the center of the internet. If you have a computer, that computer, or if you have a cell phone now, that's the portable computer. If you have a computer, that computer is the center of the world. Everything goes out, zooms out from there. You see what I mean? So you can go at the center, you can go out, like you look at it like a wheel, you see. So from your center, you can zoom out as far as you want, you see. There's no end to it. There's no end to the internet. You zoom out, you keep zooming out, you roam around. And you're always at the center. You are active in this world. But at the same time, you're also on the rim. So you're both. In this roaming internet church, the first person has been restored as you in the center, and you're also at the same time an it in the internet. Other people talk to you as an it. And they're also the center. So every person is the center of the internet. And this is the paradigm of the Buddhist worldview of Indra's net. Indra's net. It also came out of Hinduism. Indra was a god. And Indra's net is a picture of the world as a vast, boundless net. And at every crossroads, there is a drop of dew. And in that drop of dew reflects the rest of the world. So every drop of dew, every intersection in the net is the center of the net. There is no boundary or wall around it, you see, like a walled city with a center. This boundless. So when you have no circumference, the center is in the center, and everyone is the center, you see. So everyone is the center of the world, and that's first person. That's first person. I am the center of the world. You are the center of the world. Everybody is the center of the world. There is no one center around which we all integrate and gather, you see. This is a different paradigm. This is a different world idea. This is a different reorganization of reality. And we're moving more and more into this. As the internet gets more powerful and the wideband and the computers and the cell phones, we can see this happening every day. So the third person and the first person are united through the smartphone, which is like the gateless gate of Zen I was talking about. And this is restoring center that has been the first person that has been misplaced since the fall of the Roman Church. The first person and the third person, I and it, have been separated, and the first person has been relegated to being outside of reality as an observer. I can observe everything, you see, but I can't observe myself. And this is where Buddhism really is coming in and why it's so important. Zen particularly, because this is a teaching that teaches you how, or shows you how, to observe the first person and to reactivate the first person. And by activating the first person, it's kind of like when you get a credit card and you have to call it in to activate it. The credit card has no power until you activate it. So the first person has to be activated. Otherwise, it's asleep in the it world. I'm an it, you're an it, something's missing and I'm unhappy. I'm always looking for something. I'm looking for my person. I'm looking for my person in the future. But first person is always now, you see. I'm always now, but I'm looking for myself in the future as an it. Because its are in the future, its are in the past, and its are in the present. Everything is an it in this flat world. In the flat world that the Enlightenment created. And it became the it world, the objective view of the world as its. It's a very powerful view, and I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that it missed out, it left out and excluded the first person. So it can't hold, because you can't split the two persons, you see. I, per first person and second person, makes a whole person. You see, you can't separate them and do away with one and just have the other, you see. So that's created a hunger and a yearning for the first person, but we keep looking for the first person as something else, as an it, as God or Jesus or the Promised Land or Trump or whatever we're looking for. That's the first person that will give me back my first person, you see. So Trump really ran as the first person. And those who are looking for the first person says, I'll find my first person if Trump is my first person. So it becomes kind of like a cult, you see. But everywhere this is going on, everybody, the first person is awakening. Black Lives Matter is awakening of the first person. LGBT, awakening of the first person. The first person is awakening everywhere, you see, as little different movements. America First, nationalism, is the awakening of America as the first person. So everywhere, because the old mythology, the old paradigm is breaking up. We can't find the first person no longer in something, in a building, in a religion, or in a science. You see, even quantum physics says that the observer, the scientist, is part of the experiment. That the scientist cannot be outside of the experiment. Consciousness creates the world that we perceive. Our perception creates the world that we live in. That's first person. But the first person has to be awakened. That's called realization, enlightenment, awakening, self-realization, individuation in Carl Jung. All of these philosophies come from the East, because in the East, the first person was kept alive in their worldview. In the West, it was killed or just removed, extricated and put outside of the world so you could fix it and make stuff. So I hope this helps understanding how the center is shifting in the world today. And from the inside, it looks like insanity because everything is changing. All the rugs are being pulled out. It's like we had this, we're like a Zen. There's a story in Zen that says, you know, that Zen is, or a Zen cone, or Zen, is like you have a man who's blind and he's on a crutch, and Zen kicks the crutch out from under him and turns him around and knocks him down, and he gets up. He has no idea where he was. His center has been taken away, and that is done intentionally. If you're on a spiritual journey, you intentionally kick the crutches out from under you so that you can restore your center that is not dependent upon anything. So the first person to be awake is a mind that's roused, that does not depend upon any it. The first person awakens fully when it is no longer dependent upon an it. So all the its are taken away, because its are all impermanent. Its are just conventional nouns. Its have no reality. So the only really reality there is first person. I am. I am is the primary ground of reality. You know, from there the world is created of its, and you look around and you do stuff. Okay, so we'll leave it with that. And thank you for joining me and taking this adventure with me into these rather difficult ideas and understanding. And I hope that we can, as we explore it, we can make it simple, and it will give us a better understanding of why the world is so crazy. It's not really crazy. There's a logic to it. But you have to, if you want to understand what's happening in the pool we're swimming in, there has to be a view from outside the pool while we're in the pool. So anyway, I'll see you at martini time this evening.